We do see the early stages of a recovery in the economy in New Zealand, and we do expect inflation to fall towards the midpoint of our target band within the next 12 months. And we think the fundamentals are really in favor of inflation falling. Wage growth is still subdued. We have core inflation firmly within the target band. We still have a lot of spare capacity in the economy. So we think it's appropriate to stay accommodative for some time and then start normalizing when we see that the recovery is really getting going.
Governor, I want to bring in your backstory or back history over in Sweden at the Riksbank. It has a reputation of being a little bit more on the hawkish side, I think it would be fair to say. So I want to get your sense, your estimate now that you're leading the RBNZ. What do you think, or where do you think the true neutral rate could or should be for OCR New Zealand?
Well, we do have an estimate, which is rather wide, like many central banks, but between 2.25 and 4%. We're really saying we think is between 2.5 and 3.5. So we don't want to focus too much on the midpoint around 3%, but it's around that area. So we do think we are still accommodative. We think that when the OCR was at 5.5, it was clearly very restrictive, but now we are a little bit accommodative still.
A little bit accommodative still, but if needed, you would hit the hike button.
If we see that inflationary pressures are taking hold earlier than we expect, we will adjust our monetary policy stance. We are very much focused on getting back to the 2% midpoint for inflation.
Okay, you've talked about the sources of inflation in New Zealand, commodity prices for one, agricultural resilience. Also, you've got the recovery where you are starting to broaden. Which of those would be do you think would be the main risk over the next, say, 12, 18 months or so?
In terms of inflation or in terms of growth? So,
in terms of inflation.
So in terms of inflation, I think the risk is that we get some unexpected high inflation again. It could be tradables. We saw that in the last quarter when we have data. The latest numbers we have is really for the fourth quarter of 25. And then tradables inflation was higher than expected. And there was some in non-tradables, which is more domestic, but it was administrative prices are late cycle. So we expect that to fall out. But there is a risk that we get some new global shocks pushing up inflation, and being already just slightly above our target band, that would be uncomfortable. There's also a risk that price setting behavior has changed a bit and firms will start hiking prices sooner than we think if we see the recovery going. So those are risks that we're looking at very carefully.
All right, Governor, you walked into this job and you took this job fully knowing, as most people do, that your institution, the RBNZ, has in the recent past faced, I think it would be fair to say, some credibility challenges around and criticism around communication as well as forecasting. What sorts of changes are you intending to make to try and improve that situation, including the monetary policy format?
Well, we are an excellent institution. We have really great staff. It's a very dynamic group of people working here, and they're constantly learning and developing. So right now we're looking into how we are communicating. We changed the press conference slightly. We'll be doing more outreach. That means that we'll be traveling the country to really listen and learn to businesses, to see more, get more data in real time on what's happening in the economy. Because as all central banks, we have the issue that for the statistics from Statistics New Zealand, they lag. The GDP data we have now is from the third quarter of last year, for example. So we are trying to look into more real-time data and getting more information from businesses and firms around the country. And then we're always working on our models and how to improve and making sure that the staff has the right skills, etc.
Governor, do you intend to change your approach to communicating forward guidance?
So I think what we're trying to do is to be a little bit more open about the deliberations that we have internally. So if you look at the record of meetings, we're very clearly saying different risks that we are weighing. We're looking at how people see, the appropriateness of the monetary policy stance. So we are trying to be open and transparent about the discussions we have at the Monetary Policy Committee. And then we try to also talk about how we see policy going forward and being open that we might change our stance if we get new numbers that show that inflationary pressures are different from what we expected.
Governor, you would probably agree that unemployment in New Zealand right now is still relatively elevated, but the good news is the labor market seems to be stabilizing, and growth, as I suggested, is not just picking up but also broadening. I want to help you. I want to get you to help us understand how you weigh the risks of two things. One is over tightening and also under tightening.
Yeah, so we are seeing that we still have a lot of spare capacity. Unemployment is still high. It actually increased in the latest numbers, 5.4%. So we are concerned that if we tighten too soon, we might stifle a nascent recovery in the economy, and that would mean that inflationary pressures over the medium term might fall below our target. On the other hand, we have seen in New Zealand also historically that inflationary pressures can be pretty high. You know, potential output could be a bit weaker than we expect. And in that case, we might need to tighten sooner. And we discussed both those options during the deliberations, and that's also in the record of the meetings that we've had those discussions.